While staying within the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals are taking on the Houston Texans. Obviously, CJ Stroud is coming off of that phenomenal game he had. The 5 touchdowns, 470 passing yards. Definitely not a game to look at and say, well, that's going to be an easy win for either of these teams. I think it'll be a difficult win. And Sunday Night Football, the Bengals beat the Bills, but Jamar Chase got injured, has some back soreness. And we've got T. Higgins also has a hamstring injury, according to Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter did tweet about an hour ago that they're both at practice today. Jamar Chase is in a jersey. T. Higgins is not. So little obviously you want all your best guys out there, right? You want T. Higgins and Jamar Chase out there if the situation allows it. However, there's this idea I'm seeing in the media that the Bengals can't win with both of them. If both of them aren't out there, if one of them isn't out there, it'll be harder, definitely. But I think this Bengals team has shown that they will find ways to win. Last week they used the tight ends more often than they usually do. Joe's starting to get some chemistry with all three. 2 of the tight ends had touchdowns, Drew Sample and Irv Smith. Also, I'm excited to see our rookie wide receivers. We drafted Charlie Jones, a standout out of Purdue. He hasn't been available for a lot of games due to an injury, but in the one game that he played, he had 1 reception for 6 yards, and then against the Ravens, he had a punt return touchdown. So that's some big yardage right there. The one guy, I'm still excited to see Charlie Jones because I do think he can be more. He was kind of drafted to be more of Tyler Boyd's replacement, I think. Yoshi is the big-bodied guy, Andre Yosivas, who is a 6th round pick, I believe. And he has just been great. He's been a great red zone threat. You look at his stats, and his yardage isn't insane. The most he has is 9 in both the Cardinals and the Bills game. But he already has 2 touchdowns, and that's pretty good considering he's very rarely used. So if Jamar Chase or T. Higgins is out, I think Joe Burrow will find a way to win this game, whether it be on the run game. The Bengals defense is going to come in with a point to prove, I think. With CJ Stroud coming off of that huge game, you've got Cam Taylor-Britt's going to want another interception. Logan Wilson's going to want another interception. I know that they know where they're ranked on the list.
But like, do you actually think that they do? Because I feel like some players don't really keep track of stats like that. I mean, like defensive players might not be really keeping track of that unless they're like insane. I don't know. I don't know, because I feel like there's some players that don't really keep track. Like, okay, Tyreek Hill might be keeping track of where he's at so he can get to 2,000 yards, but like there might be some players that aren't really like counting how many, because I just like, this is not relating to what you're talking about entirely because this is a hockey reference, but like Sidney Crosby just did an interview the other day and somebody was like, how many points do you have this season? He was like, I don't know off the top of my head. And then I think he ended up guessing correctly, but then they asked him how many points he had all time, and he was like, I don't know. So I mean, like, I feel like it's just, I feel like the players just kind of focus on one game at a time. But I mean, maybe, but if they've been ball hungry on your side, then there is that chance that they're looking for that next interception because they've been ball hungry. So
I think they know how many interceptions they've got, and they know how many interceptions the leader has, which is currently Geno Stone with the Ravens. And they know,
maybe, I mean, I don't know.
They're not going to do something stupid to chase that. Like, Logan Wilson's not going to leave his zone just to fly over to where the ball is to try and steal an interception from someone else. That's not how that defense operates. That's not the type of guy he seems to be. I don't know him, but he doesn't strike me as that. I'm just saying, I think, in fact, Trey Hendrickson, he's currently chasing his own franchise sack record and is also in top 5 sacks. there was against the Bills, he had a sack. I don't know if it went down as a sack or not, but it was like right at the line of scrimmage, and he was like by the ref, and you could see the ref laughing, and you could almost, I wish he was mic'd up, but you could see on his lips, it sounded like he said, "Come on, just give it to me." Like he
Hmm.
needed that sack to
Maybe,
help
man.
him get. I think some of these guys keep track of it. Now, all time, I don't think that's a bit harder to keep track of, especially in a sport like hockey with Sidney
Well,
Crosby.
I mean, it's just goals and assists.
Yeah, but all time, like Sidney
Maybe.
Crosby's been playing a while.
I mean, I get your good point. So he just had his like 1500th point, I think, not too long ago. I think that's what he said.
So yeah, maybe he knows that. Maybe he knows that's coming up. But I don't think that'd be like if you asked Jamar Chase how many receptions have you had in your career, that might be harder. But if you asked him how many receptions he had last week, probably know
Yeah, I
that.
mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're like always tracking. I feel like sometimes they are, but like I feel like I don't know. I feel like they're just kind of like focusing on the game and seeing, but maybe. I mean, it's a possibility. I'm not trying to like burst the bubble or anything, but I'm just trying to bring up that conversation because it's like, do they really know, or are they just like playing and just really intense? Because like I don't know, does like TJ Watt like kind of like look at his stats, or is he just out there playing ball and just like trying to destroy everybody
We
that's on the
we
field?
know TJ Watt looks at his stats. He
Yeah,
got fined for looking on his phone last year
oh,
for at his stats
oh, that's
during the
funny.
game. He
Okay.
was last year when he got the sack record, or was it the year before? Whatever year that was,
It
he
was I think it was like 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years
Yeah.
ago, he got fined for looking on his phone to see if they gave it to him.
Oh yeah, because he had tied. Yeah, he had the tie. Yeah, he
Yeah,
tied the sack record, which is insane. But
but
also another question for you. Um, you remember? I don't know if you remember this conversation we had last year. This was before we kind of moved to YouTube, and we were kind of just doing this as like a Spotify, Apple Music, and just podcasts. But we had a conversation about tight ends and the importance that they have. Do you believe that the tight end is now much more important for your team in going to the Super Bowl? Because if now you're getting targets with Drew Sample and Irv Smith, and they both had touchdowns, if you take them out of the game, would you have still won?
um, so the tight end is one of my favorite positions. Let me just say that. The reason I'm a Bengals fan is because of Tyler Eifert, who was a tight end. I love the tight end position. Gronk is one of my favorite players. He's the greatest tight end of all time. Sorry, Travis Kelsey, he's just a better blocker. But I think it depends on your team and your scheme. The
Okay.
Bengals do not value the tight end position because the way the team is lined up, they don't need to. When you have Jamar Chase, when you have T. Higgins, when you have Tyler Boyd, you don't need to go out and spend a ton of money on a tight end.
Yeah.
I would love it if we could bring in a top tier tight end, but they can't. They can't afford to. And they don't need to because they don't necessarily need that receiving threat. Did it help them win on Sunday? Yes, but probably because the Bengals never used their tight ends up until that game. And they had Tanner Hudson out there, who was a practice squad player, tight end. Bills don't really know much about him and how the Bengals are going to use him. Same with Irv Smith. Irv Smith last week had a fumble, or not last week, the week before had a fumble. And there was this whole narrative going around like Joe Burrow doesn't trust Irv Smith. So maybe they don't game plan for Irv Smith. Okay, Drew Sample. We know he's a blocking tight end. That's primarily what he does. He gets a few receptions. We're not going to look at him to be a receiving threat. We're going to focus on T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd. Now, go to the Chiefs. They have some decent receivers, but Patrick Mahomes also has 24 passes that have been dropped this season by his receivers. In that case, you need Travis Kelsey. You need to have that top tier tight end because without that tight end, you have no passing game.
Nope.
So it really depends on what you have. If we get into a situation where let's say T Higgins moves on and Yoshi is his replacement, then maybe you go out and you get a higher tier tight end because Irv is on a 1-year contract, I believe. So I think the Bengals can win without the tight end position. I think they can win a Super Bowl. Or not without the tight end position, but without a top tier tight end. But it would obviously be more helpful, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, the more great pass catchers you have, the easier it is to win. But I don't think they need him because they have Joe Burrow, they have Jamar Chase, they have all these other guys.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you believed also it like benefited you to have like these somewhat better tight ends, and that Joe Burrow's like actually looking at them a little bit more now, just because like before he wasn't, and like maybe you guys like weren't winning games because of it, or maybe it had nothing to do with that altogether, because obviously Burrow was hurt. I just didn't know if like your opinions had changed or what you felt about the tight end position, and if you felt a little bit more confident now that you have some tight ends that can actually like get you some points and stuff, like whether it's 7, like getting you that 7 points or 6, I guess technically, because they don't do the extra point, but get that 6 points for you or whatever. So I was just curious to see where you stood for that now. So
like last season when we talked about this, Hayden Hurst was the Bengals tight end.
Yes, and I remember
the season before it was CJ Uzama. Irv Smith has probably been the worst performing out of those 3. Drew Sample's been on the team since 2019, I believe. He was drafted by the Bengals in 2018, 2019. I think it was 2019. But I think there were some doubts about Irv Smith because he had a lot of dropped passes on third downs. And it just seemed like the effort wasn't there. You very rarely heard his name called in a positive light. So I think that was the issue that Joe might have had with him. And then this game, I think, was a confidence booster for the tight ends, hopefully. And hopefully Joe is able to use them more often now. But that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was just wondering about it. Just wanted to hear what you had to say about that in regards to it.
Thanks for watching that video, guys. If you want to check out a most recent full episode of No Buts About It, that's going to be right over here. Yeah, right there. Check that out. And if you just want to see more short clips, we're going to have one right over here for you to watch. Check out No Buts About It on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts, so you can listen to us on the go. Once again, have a great day and go do something nice for someone.